Okay, NISCA meeting, what was that, Eve? Good. NISCA meeting 1 will come to order. Welcome everyone to the 89th annual meeting, and I do want to thank Eve and Tom for organizing the conference, both for the virtual and the in-person. Definitely want to welcome our new members. I know we have new coaches from Wyoming, from Michigan. Very much look forward to spending time with you guys over the rest of the week. And Secretary Eve has put the minutes from last March's meeting on the website. I know there's many of you who reviewed those minutes from last year. Are there any corrections to the minutes as they're posted? Do we have a motion to accept the minutes from 2021? Okay, the minutes have been accepted. The next order of business is the State of NISCA report. And I'm happy to say that from a lot of different perspectives, NISCA is in good shape. We've strengthened our leadership team with the addition of several outstanding coaches in different roles. And we feel that they're going to excel in those roles. Kyle Bedeloff has taken over archives and national records. Sean Weimer has taken over as our water polo All-America chair. And Sean is an Illinois guy who has a lot of connections both in the Midwest and on both coasts. And we're excited about the headway he's going to make in getting more coaches, especially hopefully California, to submit applications for deserving players. And most of the zone director spots are open, but we do have one that remains open at this time. In terms of coaches education, Kyle Bedeloff and Kevin Pierce have strengthened the education initiatives with their podcasts. Those are extremely well done. I do know Kyle said he doesn't like his voice, but we love listening to it. It's a really good podcast if you haven't had a chance. I feel like Dana Abbott has just upped where the journal is right now, and he's made several improvements to that journal and continues to tinker with it and put his magic to that coach's ed piece. And Dana and Arvel have done a lot of work with the coaches education initiatives, especially for the international coaches. Tom Hudson is taking on a new role as our professional awards chair, and very excited about that. Arvel secured Duraflex as a sponsor for the Diving All-America program, so that's really, really good news for us there. And looking for sponsors for the All-American swim and dive. Well, we got the dive, but the swim. But with Matt Zimmer, he's a new president of Swim Outlet. I feel we've got a very strong relationship with their new president and a very influential person for a key sponsor. Those of you guys who were at the dinner last night met Jennifer Lamont from ASCA, their new CEO. She's been in that role for about a year. And I feel like our relationship with ASCA has strengthened, and she continues to look for ways that we can work with her, especially on coaching clinics. So she tries to secure coaches from NISCA to present to high school coaches for their clinics. We're on very sound financial footing thanks to Tom's leadership and diligence with our books. He's going to report on those numbers shortly, but they are good. And from our kind of key programs, the All-American programs, the applications are up from what they've been over the last couple of years. Just looking at them last night, we're well ahead of where we've been, and we should have full complement of All-American teams. Since it's a State of NISCA talk, I think we probably need to hear an honest look at the international program. I know Dana and Arvel have worked hard on it and developing educational materials, but that is struggling to get off the ground. So I'm not sure that's going to actually take off. And we're going to talk about this later in the week, but we know that the conference attendance is low, and it has been for a couple of years. So we are going to look at maybe ways to improve that for all who attend. But overall, with State of NISCA, it's very, very inspirational to me to look at everyone who volunteers their time. All you guys in the room, try to improve things for coaches across the country and give back to the sport. The next order of business is going to be our officer reports. We do have two people who are not here to present. Annette is not here for membership, but Eve gave me the membership numbers, and currently we're over 1,000. Last year at this time we were in about 900, but we're 1,115 total. The paid is 1,046. We only have one international member, and that is Will Wang, who is trying to spearhead that effort. In terms of another person who is not here, it is Cindy Dell with Hour of Power. She did communicate with me that we have 7 different states that took part in the Hour of Power this year. Indiana, Ohio, Minnesota, Texas, Georgia, Illinois, and California. We had swim teams as well as basketball and water polo teams take part in that. So it does seem like it's spread over the country, but only 7 states. So hopefully we may get more participation in that. So moving on from there, I'll just give the floor to our audit committee and Mark Onstadt. Arvel.
Okay, the audit committee met yesterday. Members were Mark Onstadt, myself, and Dana Abbott via Zoom. Also attending were our president-elect, our past president, and Tom Voislevovich, our treasurer. Tom informed the committee that the income taxes for 2021 had been filed and filed those. Then the financial statement was completed by Welch, Roberts, Auburn, and Hutto of Charleston, South Carolina on February 2nd, 2022. During the fiscal year of 2020, we had a balance of $250,814. Fiscal year 2021, $284,299. At present, we have over $300,000 in the bank, but after conference fees and expenses are paid, that will diminish. The audit revealed that NISCA is in good shape financially. The members of the audit committee, the president, the past president, and the president-elect receive monthly financial reports from the treasurer. So the audit committee felt that things were in good shape and that we moved to accept that audit report.
Thanks, Arvel. The next officer will be Tom with our treasurer's report.
Actually, that was my report. We are very financially sound. Some of you might not remember back in 1992 when I took the job as treasurer. I remember Walt Olszewski, who was the treasurer before me, indicated to me in March, comes the summertime, kind of be very careful because we might not have enough money to pay the bills. And we've grown from that situation to a very comfortable position financially today. So the pandemic has really destroyed the country completely. but it put us on a much better financial stead. We didn't have as many bills to pay because of not having a in-person conference and things of that nature. So we are very financially secure, and it looks good for the future. So that being said, the only real news I guess there is that I'm getting very up in my years, and I would like to see somebody coming forward to take the position of treasurer. So if there's anybody out there in our organization who would like to become the treasurer, certainly the position is open. I'll stay on as long as is necessary, but we do need to get somebody interested and take it over. The other object that I run the conference, and I want to let everybody to know that these little tent-like pieces of paper in your packet are very important. We have 3 different choices of meals: fish, beef, and meat. And it's kind of difficult when the waiters come in to serve the meals. These just should be put in front of your dish so the waiter knows what you have coming to you. It serves a unique opportunity, and it will make the flow of the dinner go much more smoothly. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Yes. '79. Any other questions? Thank you for having your trust in me and being your treasurer.
Ten years younger than NISCA. I'd like to recognize Arvel for our marketing report and outreach.
Well, like everything else with COVID, marketing was a little bit more difficult this last year. Businesses have had problems with their finances. You know, if you don't know, Speedo shut down their factory here in Georgia, built a new one in Tennessee, but it wasn't operational, so they haven't been producing anything over the fall and for the school year. So that's one reason for the supply chain issues there and some of the other companies. We did have, you know, some of our sponsors ask us to hold back a little bit with some of our expenses and obligation, find their financial obligations with us. We do have a new sponsor for All America Diving, as they mentioned, Duraflex. We have a new partnership with Swim Smart. It's Carl Hamouche in Wichita, Kansas. If you haven't had a chance to look at his educational materials, you know, Dana has been putting some of them in the journal, but I have a copy of both of his books, which allows NISCA members to purchase his online courses and his materials that he's developed. He has paddles and some other things that are fairly unique. A little bit about Carl. He's a physician. He grew up for his first 11 years in Lebanon and then grew up in Iowa. He is doing his residency in anesthesiology in Wichita, Kansas. And so everything from him comes from science as far as how he's developed his materials. And NISCA members get 20% discount on that. That's basically, I went to ASCA, and if you know any of you were at ASCA, you know that the vendor hall was pretty slim compared to normal years just because of COVID. There were very limited number of people that were there. We did talk with our sponsors that were there. not all were. And hopefully that will change for Las Vegas this coming fall. We are looking for a water polo All-America chair. We thought we had a line for that, but that fell through. Excuse me, a sponsor, I'm sorry. Yeah, All-America sponsor for water polo. We've tried some corporate organizations to be our academic All-America sponsor. But if you know anything about corporate America, it's difficult to find a person that you really need to talk to. It's difficult to actually talk to a real person. All you get is a machine. And so we tried Garmin for the simple fact that it's located in my hometown. And I know the CEO of Garmin because his son swam for me, but I couldn't even get a hold of him. I couldn't get a real person in Garmin so when I asked for money, they sent me a nice rejection letter because all you can do is fill out a form. I also am doing outreach, and we had 2 clinics scheduled in the fall, but because of COVID, the school districts determined they couldn't have any outside speakers come in. So we're trying to, I've reached out to them to 2 clinics this fall and maybe this summer. And I'm going to visit with the ASCA representative here so that we can kind of talk about coaches education and move forward in that direction. I also spent the COVID months writing curriculum for what was to be a certification program for the coaches in the International Baccalaureate schools in Shanghai. But that material we can use for other things. So I'm in the process of getting copyright for those materials. And that's my 3 reports.
Thanks, Arvel. Eve, I'm noticing things coming up on the chat. Are there questions that people online are? Okay. Well, if you notice, we had Arvel with marketing and outreach. We've got Dana. I'd like to recognize Dana for 3 different things: international membership, the Constitution, and the journal.
Does that mean you want me to talk about all 3?
All 3.
Okay. Start with the journal. I hope you all have been getting your journals. Hope you like the new format and content. If you have any articles that you have written yourself or talks you have given at clinics or meetings that have been transcribed, or you can transcribe them, we'd love to put member content in the journal. One of the problems is a lot of people think that what they've written or what they have to say is not going to be of that great an interest to others. I assure you that is not the case. We got a submission from Bob Schlegel several weeks ago about his reminiscences of working with Bill Boomer, who passed in January. It was an excellent article. Is Bob in the room?
He is not.
He is not. Okay. Well, it was one of the best things we've had submitted so far, and it totally blew me away because I'm just used to our rambling dialogues when we're at conference. But what he wrote was wonderful, and you'll see it in the March-April journal, which you should have within the next 10 to 14 days in your mailbox. We're going to try to keep the journal at a set number of pages. I think what we're looking at right now is 44 pages, which will include a 4-page Go Swim insert. And if you have any photos, please send them, even if it's only a district championship and not a state championship. Send it in. We've got room for it. As far as the Constitution goes, Arvel and I usually work together, editing, proofreading that. There will be, I believe, 2 minor amendment proposals offered tomorrow. They have to be voted on for approval, and then they can be voted on to become amendments at next year's meeting. International programs, I think you've already heard Arvel and I have worked quite a bit on this, and we've also been impacted by the COVID situation in China. In Shanghai alone, which is where our liaison, our NISCA liaison for the international programs is, Will Wang, they have 200 high schools just in the Shanghai area. And China itself is, as you know, much, much larger. We have also some inroads to Thailand and Vietnam and any other place in the world where they have U.S. type interscholastic programs that match our standards, and they are willing to follow National Federation rules and become NISCA members. We are happy to include them too. It's slow getting started, but I think it's going to be really big once it takes off. The entire world is being affected by COVID, and we just need to get that under control so they can open things up a little bit. If anybody has any questions on any of these, happy to try to answer.
Any questions for Dana? Thanks, Dana.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
I can't read what's on the screen, but is Matt Stewart here? Great. Matt is our PowerPoint national team dual meet chair. Matt, could you give us a report?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Hopefully this is coming across all right. Okay, so last year obviously was not as deep a year for the PowerPoints due to the pandemic. As you know, just going off of the data from a year ago, we had almost about 200 schools, 197 schools exactly, participate in the program, down from over 300 the year before. Usually it's around 300 or more schools are participating in it. I would say up to this point, so far this year, with winter season just ending anyway, I'm starting to see an influx of more entries coming in. We probably were around 40 or 50 as of a week or two ago, and I expected, at least if it models like what happened last year, I feel like in May and June, or well, actually probably more like May is where it's really going to start to spike up, because you'll start to see the spring schools, the spring sports schools and whatnot will start to come in as well. One thing I'm going to try to plan to do is try to email all the coaches ahead of time. I think last year I probably waited too long to do this, because first time I had done it, and I think I was probably about 2 or 3 weeks behind schedule last summer until I figured out what was going on, how I was doing this and what's happening in this role. But but this year, I think what I'll do, now that I kind of feel like I have command of what was happening before with what Claude had, and then what I started to kind of get going for me to understand what I'm doing and keeping things organized in a way that helps me work best. I'm going to try to get a word out to all the coaches around who've done it in the past, and just say, hey, like, we'd love to have you back. If you haven't, whether you weren't able to do it last year because you didn't have a season or whatever, just kind of lost momentum, please feel free to get back on track with that. My main observation, I guess I would say, from doing this last year is I still feel like we need to find a way as a group to streamline the process for people to submit entries. When I helped out Paul Torno, I don't know, about 10 years ago, I made this, the spreadsheet thing up, the spreadsheet, just as a way, because I just felt bad for how long it took him. I mean, he said he would just sit there and add up all of everybody's times and like do everybody's entries manually. And I just found that like an unbelievable process to undergo. And so the spreadsheet does help with coaches who are using that, but I still find that coaches are having trouble with that itself. Whether if they open the spreadsheet up and they accidentally type over a cell that has a formula in it, and then it loses its whole thing, and then you're fielding emails about that. And then you get a lot of people are still submitting paper entries, which is, just fine if they're doing it that way. And then some people are trying to use Team Manager as a way to submit their entries. It's happening in a lot of different varieties, a lot of different ways. And I think I don't know if there's a way that we can streamline that process and make it more of a uniform thing. I don't know what NISCA's affiliation is with, like, with certain organizations that, like, whatever. I mean, the one organization that I've seen, at least from a swim coaching perspective, that I think might be able to make this process maybe a little more smoothly, or something we could at least look into, is the use of Swim Cloud. Swim Cloud does a lot with tying in the PowerPoints to meet results. I think there's a way to kind of create lineups in there where it'll generate a PowerPoint score for you. So if you were to, kind of basically, that's what we're doing. We're making a meet lineup. But I'd have to investigate that a little further, or to see if that's even a remote possibility to pull off. But that would be like my biggest thing, just after having done it last year, looking for a way to kind of streamline the process so it's kind of a uniform approach, for all who are, submitting in entries for this, because it is fun. It's fun to see the different performances from schools and teams all around the country, and who's doing well where, and who's improving, and whatnot. It is fun to see that, but it's a lot when you're looking at all the different things coming in many different formats. So I don't know if there's any questions, or anybody has any questions, but that's pretty much the update I can give at this time.
Matt, have you talked to people at Swim Cloud?
I spoke with a fellow last year. I have to look up his name real quick, but I did speak with somebody.
Scott Kitzman?
Yes. Yeah, it was I was going to say his name starts with a K, his last name, but I had spoken to him with another coach in our league, because we were just looking to try to get our league onto it. And when he was kind of walking us through the whole, this is what it can do, one of the things that jumped into my head was, this might be something we can use for the dual meet program, just because you're making a lineup. I forget what the feature was in Swim Cloud, but it was something like that. And if coaches are putting their times and uploading meet results to Swim Cloud, which I know a lot more coaches are doing more and more, it might make it an easier process for coaches to go through and possibly do that. So it's something maybe worth looking into, but I just don't know how, where the pitfalls might be with that.
So Eve mentioned that we've talked about going online with the PowerPoint, kind of a next step with the All-American Online.
I think, yeah, I remember somebody mentioning that last year. Yes. But
okay, we'll talk about those things, and you and Dick and Eve can talk. Any other questions for Matt? Thanks, Matt.
Sure. No problem.
And again, you're noticing, Arvo multiple roles, Dana multiple roles. Next, we have Kyle Bedelov, and he is our archives, national records.
Good morning. First, before we start, we need to wish this young man over here a happy birthday, because I feel like we didn't do that yet. So make sure you wish him a happy birthday. I'm doing really good. This is my first time in the position. It could be the last, yes. I already saw that the water polo chair got fired already today. I took this over from Mike Schulke. He and I went to Fort Lauderdale back in, I think it was June of last year. And that's where all the archives are actually stored, in the International Swim Hall of Fame, in their building in the back there. We did a lot of cleanup in there. There was tons and tons of extra programs, and we cleaned up and streamlined the process. The other part that is part of this is the national records. And I didn't really fully understand or grasp the process for the national records until there was a meet in Florida where there was 11 or 9 national records set at the same meet. So the year before, there were 11 national records. This year, we've processed already 15 national records, 13 from independent schools, 2 from public schools. All 15 of those were from meter pools so far this year. I don't know if we'll have, yeah, the meter records are, yeah, I don't know how many more will happen. I don't know how many seasons are still to go. I think everybody finished up. I think there may have been, there might be one more for fly that I think is going to be processed for girls side, but that's what we've got going on for national records. The process is still manual. They have to fill out a form. I have to double check to make sure that the pool's certified. I have to make sure they're members, all those things. And Mike did a great job of passing that information on to me. I think that's about it. Does anybody have any questions? All right. Yeah, sir. I am 52. Okay.
No one asked how old you are. Okay, thanks, Kyle. I'd like to recognize Pete Hugo for rules.
Morning. As far as rules go, first of all, let's thank Sandy Cersei for being here today. It's fantastic that she's here. The rules to me is really a exciting. That doesn't sound exciting and it sounds dry, but it's fun to be on. It's fun to be in a room with people throughout the United States. Some know swimming, some don't, but they're there for the same reason, to just make swimming better for kids. But as far as rules go, we did not, as you saw, we did not have a lot of new rule proposals. Might have been 10 or 12. And I'm not going to say anything about those rules because if I did, I'd probably have my head cut off. But anyway, we did vote on rules the other day, and some of them are, one of them will absolutely be, at least we'll use it for next year. The others are more questionable, but what I would suggest is that we start to look, and I'm going to try to get the people in this room in one of our meetings to try to think outside the box. What do we need to do? What is there that's out there that we want to do to change swimming to make it better? I don't want to take away diving rules or diving, but we came up with a new proposal for diving that we think will be very exciting, and I'll let Don talk about that. The only other thing I want to say is that we put together a Survey Monkey. How many people actually took that survey? Raise your hand. Well, I'll tell you, when I heard we had about 1,000 people here, as members, we probably have close to 1,000 people responding to that survey. So it's obvious that we have a vehicle to get out to our swimming people. Because in 1 week, we had 1,000 people come up with those questions, with the answers and stuff. So it's the way to go. And you'll hear more about the rules, I'm sure, as we go on. Sandy will, she can elaborate more than I can on the rules. Any questions on rules? Dana?
I have no questions.
No questions. All right, thank you. That's my rule.
Thanks, Pete. Professional awards with Tom Hudson.
Thank you. I just became the professional awards chair yesterday. So I'm new to this. I've been on the committee for a little while, but we did come to a consensus on some professional awards. So the recipients of the Outstanding Service Award for next year are Jessica Roby from Illinois, Eric Craven from Colorado, Ken Disher from North Dakota, Eric Bartleson from Washington, Meg Kaplan from New York, the sixth person is Sharon Millar from Michigan. Congratulations to all those folks. Collegiate Scholastic Award, Pete Foley from Massachusetts, and Brent Rudemiller, a good friend. Hall of Fame Award for next year is Kirk Price from Colorado. So congrats to Kirk. Our lifetime member, Bill Emery from Maine. I have also served as the David H. Robertson Award Chair for quite a few years now. We only had one application last year, and that was Eric Craven from Colorado. So I'm gonna effort to get more people to apply for that award. David H. Robertson Award is anyone that has won 5 state championships in their career. And we have just not had very much interest in applying for that. So I'll get with Eve and we'll try and blast that out to people to get more applications in for that as well. But that's my report. Thanks, Tim.
And I do want to thank Pete Hugo for our outgoing professional awards chair for all the work he's done. He's got multiple roles as everyone else. So thanks to Tom for taking over that position. Next up will be Don Mason with our diving. Eve, are there questions coming through?
Hi, our diving committee met yesterday and we also discussed rules. And, there's a couple interesting ones for the diving portion of it, but what came out of our meeting, we had a great discussion over a lot of things. It was really, one of our better meetings. But one of the things that came out is we're going to try and work with the National Federation to championship formats. It's become apparent that there's a lot of different ways to run our championships. And if we could just get all those there, the thought is that we can come up with, we can offer other states different ways to do it, or a better way, a more efficient way to include all your events and do it in a different way. It was just amazing to find out all the different ways that we're doing it. Just in here, if we talked about that real quick, how many people do combined either 1 or 2 state meets in the same pool? How many people only do one at a time? I know in Michigan, we have 3 different ones going on at the same time in 3 different pools. There's just so many different ways. We also do it co-ed, both guys and girls at the same time we know of. But there's so many different ways that we do it, and they're all legitimate ways to run championships. The thought is that if we could get that in writing somewhere, that all of us can benefit from it. So look forward to seeing some of that stuff. There's also, we're always looking for ways to increase the number of divers and diving programs. We hate to see numbers go down. Seems like in the strong areas, their diving's doing very well. In the lesser areas, it's hard to keep the programs afloat. So we're always looking for ways to include more athletes in the diving programs. So we'll look for something in the future. Going forward, we want to find ways to involve the divers either in more swimming events or possibly in another diving event. Putting on my All-American chair hat, I think we have set our meeting date. We are going to try and go back to where we've been over the years. The last few years, we've had to push it back to just try and get our committee to meet. But it looks like as of now, June 8th through 12th will be the All-American Selection Committee meeting for diving. Along that line, with 3/4 of our championships completed, now is the time for you guys to put in your applications. Remind your parents, coaches, get that stuff in while we're thinking about it, because the more we move away from our seasons, the harder it is to get that stuff in. We have redone the rules and information online for diving. So hopefully we'll have less questions, but as always, if you have questions, there is places for you to reach out and contact me, and I will get back with you as soon as I can. So that's my report for this year. Any questions? Fabulous. I don't know any of the rule changes. They haven't been announced. You like that answer, Sandy? Yeah, the process for rule changes, just so you know, the committee meets and they make the recommendations, and then it goes to another committee and another committee, and finally, in June, we hear something about it. So, but like Peter said, there was, a lot of housekeeping issues more than anything else. So I don't foresee that many changes in that. Any other questions? Fabulous.
Thanks, Dan. Eve, is Sean in on the Zoom? Okay, so so water polo and Sean being newer, I think we just didn't have communication about meeting with the zone directors, but he's planning on meeting with them in the next couple of weeks. And yes. Thanks. Peter just said April 13th or approximately that time is when the rules will be announced. Well, in terms of Sean, again, very excited that he's on board. And I think in talking to Sean, he's an Illinois guy. I think he and Mark will work very well together in the All-America Polo spot. Next up is Mark Jetto for our zone directors.
All right, good morning, everybody. We had our zone directors meeting yesterday. In attendance was Phil Emery from Zone 1, Jim Sterrett from Zone 2, Ian Kovas from Zone 4, and myself from Zone 6, and Eve helping out with our technology. The things that we discussed was our overall improvements in communication. We're going to be working a little bit more closely with our state directors. We're tasking our state directors to provide us with the names and address and schools of all the state championship programs this year, so that the president can send out a nice little letter to each of those coaches, recognizing their accomplishments. We did a quick tutorial on using our make sure we got Jim now on board on how to do it, make it a little bit more effective. Phil is going to be stepping down from his role as the Zone 1 director. Zone 1 next year and getting that accomplished. We are still in search of a Zone 3 director, which we'll be continuing to work on. We have some leads that we're going to be following up with. But overall, we're in pretty good shape. The newsletters and using SMAR have been pretty effective on getting information out, and we think we're going to be able to get that thing launched a little bit better. And that is for my report.
Thanks, Mark. In case you aren't aware, hearing SMAR, it's what Eve sends the newsletters and the e-blasts out with. So it's very convenient, and we've purchased a subscription for, I think, 15 different users. So all the zone directors can use that. Next up, we have Greg Anderson, both with Coaches Education and with the NISCA store.
Thanks, Tim. The Education Committee met yesterday, and I feel like
I've already given my report because everybody's kind of covered what I was going to say, but Arvel talked about the clinics that had to be canceled because of COVID, and they're going to be rescheduled. And they already talked about the international program, and Arvel has developed 11 courses for those coaches, and I hope that gets off the ground. Dana talked about the need for articles, and that's part of the education committee's goals too, is to help Dana with the articles. And if you haven't seen the podcasts that Kyle and Kevin have done, they're really excellent, and that's a great addition to coaches' education. And that's basically all that I have for education. Now, I have the NISCA store in my basement, and I'm in charge of sending people purchase the All-American Journal, and we actually sold 24 this year, which is down quite a bit. I think at the beginning we sold about 50 of those copies, and we're down to 24. People, when they register for NISCA, have an opportunity to buy the Eddie Reese book that Dana and Chuck Werner have written, and we've sold about 45 of those, no, 55 of those, and I have 45 left in the store. I also have NISCA certificates. This year we sold probably 7 or 8 packets. 2 states have asked for the NISCA Top 16 certificates. Now, when I was coaching in New Jersey, those were really appreciated. And I really think that if you have an opportunity to get the NISCA State Top 16 certificates, they're really appreciated by all the swimmers that get them. There was very little activity in the store actually online. A couple of books were sold, but not too many. So does anybody have any questions?
What states asked for the top 16?
Wisconsin and Michigan, I think.
Any other questions for Greg? Okay, thanks, Greg. The All-America chairs, Mark Onstadt.
We had our All-American Chair meeting yesterday. Tim Sirois, boys swimming, Don Mason with diving, Marnie Shirley, academic All-American and scholar team, Kyle Bedlove, who is our archives, Mark Jetta, who does girls swimming and para. And then via Zoom was Sean Weimer, our new water polo chair, was there. And then Dick Farnsworth from IST, who basically wrote all of our online application programs. And Eve Julian was there because one of Eve's jobs is webmaster. And I guess part of that job is making a lot of corrections on the website that Dick doesn't have to do. So everybody was there. And really at the chairs meeting, we deal with issues. We might have a suggestion, but the All-American programs, all online. And they're basically in a position where we're tweaking things. We're trying to make things better. We're trying to, track down bugs. And the All-American chairs, who, by the way, are just incredible, the amount of work they do year round. And when we get to this time of the year, March, you see computers out here at the meeting, and they're processing applications and doing their job as we're here. And March is a very busy time because a lot of applications for the winter season are due, academic is due. All those things are happening pretty much at the same time. And then right on through June when they have to wrap everything up. So they are without a doubt as hard a working bunch of folks and do an incredible job as anybody we have. My job is really not that difficult. One of my main jobs is when somebody realizes that they're not on the list. It's usually a mother or a father, and they call up a coach and say, what the heck, why aren't we there? Or they email us, one of the chairs or myself, and my job is to explain to them how, you know, it is what it is. You know, the list is closed, we can't do anything. So that's not a fun part of my job, and I would say that we have less and less and less of that, but we still have people who don't fill out applications properly, who don't push the button to submit, who then don't check on the website where all the processed applications are listed. And so then they get past the deadline and it's too late. So I really have the easy job. I do. My job is kind of telling people no, working with the chairs with any issues they might have, and helping coordinate the year-end process of getting those files and making sure that we have a published file for the website, that we have a file for the mailing of certificates, and making sure all that gets done. So that all comes to me, and I get it to Eve, who puts it on the website. And it is kind of amazing how many tweaks and things, you know, you find out once it's on the website that the name was misspelled, or all kinds of little things that we tweak to make it correct. Some of the issues that we've been having, New Jersey, no offense, Tom, New Jersey, for some reason this year, they run a tournament, in effect, a dual meet tournament for their state championship, which I think is pretty cool. But one of the sites for that did not, they ran electronic timing, which is a requirement for All-American, but they did not have printed results with splits. They actually transposed it from the scoreboard onto an old time dual meet scoring form. Yeah, just a regular result sheet. Anyway, so we're dealing with that. We're adding some language to take care of that. We also have had an issue with the number of emails that are automatically generated out of the system, which of course is another way that a person who submitted an application knows that that it went in. And we're having difficulty because we're overloading our email system. So I think we're up to, we have purchased enough now for 200 an hour. And of course, again, this time of year, these guys, they're all, you know, Marty, the guys, they're all processing so many. And I think it sends out 2 emails, or is it 3 emails? So either 2 or 3 emails go out with each application. So obviously it adds up. Let's see. Diving, I don't think Don mentioned this, but they're transitioning away from DVDs, not unlike we transitioned away from 8mm film and from videotapes and DVDs, and now a lot of it is uploaded to YouTube. There could be possible issues with YouTube because of the volume that's generating, but Don is obviously on top of that. We talked about having a combined scholar team, you know, so there's some teams that have we'll have boys and girls together and apply for a scholar team, which we're going to add to the application online and make that okay. And applications are up, obviously. You know, schools are open, seasons are happening, so our applications are getting back to where they have been. And I'm looking forward to working with Sean Weimer because I think he's really going to do what we've been hoping would happen as we got online. And he's going to, you know, get some California folks to actually apply. California has great water polo, but for whatever reason, the coaches don't feel like they need to apply for it. So anybody have any questions? I leave anything out? Good. Thank you.
Well, next up is Eve, our webmaster. You want me to hand it back to you back there?
All right, so this year I worked on keeping the website up to date and posting on social media. I tried to get it 3 times a week. I use a program called Buffer. So on Monday morning, I can come in, set up my posts for the week, and then it's done and they just go out when I've scheduled them to go out, which makes things very easy. This year, the website had 40,000 visitors. The most popular pages were All-American Swimming, All-American Diving, All-America Academics, the All-America Time Standards, and then the awards landing page. We have an average of 415 active users per day, but we get really big spikes in like July to August when the All-America lists come out, and then again, March to early to mid-April as people are putting in applications for the end of the winter season. Visitors to our site are 46% female and 56% male. And then 61% of them fall into the 18 to 34 age range. On social media, NISCA, the Facebook page itself has 829 followers. The High School Coaches Exchange group has 2,095 members. Twitter, we have 869 followers, and Instagram, we have 606 followers. I am always looking for more content to put on the website and social media. Pictures are great. Pictures get lots of attention. So if you've got stuff that we can put up, send them to me and to Dana so that he can put them in the journal as well. Make sure that you're part of the Facebook group because we get a lot of young coaches on there asking questions, and it's great to have multiple different perspectives. And that's, I think, it for me.
Thanks, Eve. So the next order of business, that concludes the committee of the chair reports. The next order of business in even numbered years, we take nominations for secretary. And in odd years, it's president-elect and treasurer. So at this time, I want to open the floor for nominations for secretary. Arvil nominates Eve Julian, and who seconded it? Don Mason seconds the motion.
Move to close nominations.
Do we have a motion to close the floor? Okay, the floor is closed for nominations. This concludes the business we had for meeting number 1. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mark Onstadt and Ian Kobus. The meeting is closed. How are we going to recognize birthday boy? No, but I plugged this into my computer. And I fast forward or rewind. You should ask Eve. She'll.
Think we meet in the lobby for lunch
at
1 o'clock. So we probably want to meet early. I'm just wondering
That's a
how long
projection.
it's about.